Luke 1, verses 26 through 38, and this is from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a child, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and his kingdom there will be no end." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I am a virgin?" The angel said to her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore the child to be born will be holy. He will be called Son of God. And now your relative Elizabeth in her old age, has also conceived a son, and this is the 6th month for her who was said to be barren. For nothing will be impossible with God." Then Mary said, "Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." Then the angel departed from her. Word of God for the people of God.
If you don't know me, my name is Allee Wilcox, and like Pastor Kim said, I go to Florida Southern College. I am a senior majoring in religion and hopefully headed to seminary next year. I could not be more ecstatic to be speaking to you all this morning. It's wonderful to be home for Thanksgiving break, and when Pastor Kim asked me if I could speak to you all, I emphatically answered yes, especially considering that this is United Methodist Student Sunday. This place, these hallowed halls, is where I began to seek God's call on my life for ministry, and as I stand before you, I'm preparing to be a recertified candidate for ministry in the Florida Conference. God is very good, and I owe all of you so much for this wonderful journey. If you don't know me, or even if you do, here are a few things that you might want to know about me before we get started. I'm pretty loud, I'm a perfectionist, and I'm also least likely to take a risk. If you've seen the VMAs when Taylor Swift opts not to jump into the strong arms of her male backup dancer, she was performing and got all the way up on this ledge and is singing, and then makes a huge scene because said, I'm not going to jump, and runs all the way back down. That's me in a nutshell. So that's why it was surprising, you could say, in January of 2014 when I made a big decision. I was about to do something that I had never considered, or I had always considered, but never seriously pursued. My family didn't believe me when I told them that Alex, my boyfriend, was taking me, but I decided to go. Friends, I went skydiving. If you've ever been skydiving, you'll know that it's a pretty ridiculous decision to make, but it isn't totally unheard of, and there are only a few freak accidents a year. But nothing tells your body that when you actually arrive at getting in the plane, you'll make the decision to jump out of. My hands are sweaty, even more sweaty than they normally are when I speak, and my heart still races even to this day when I talk about it. It was a huge risk, huge. This was not the Allee thing to do at all. Everything in my body screamed no as the nice gentleman I was strapped to directed me to my seat on the plane. The jump went well, I mean, here I am, but I can say that the process of falling was ridiculously scary, and I landed with the worst vertigo of my life. I was glad I did it though. We went to a place over by New Smyrna Beach, and so when we were falling through the sky, you could see the beach and the ocean, and it was beautiful, and I can now say that I have the experience of skydiving. But the benefits pretty much stop there. We didn't even get the cool pictures that you get when you go skydiving because my wonderful boyfriend Alex got a little sick afterwards, so we pulled it out. So what benefit is there to taking risk? My business professors at Florida Southern like to tell me that the benefit is more money or more security. Risk equals reward, right? What if following God meant risking everything, and I do mean everything? And not in a cheesy way, but really think about it. When was the last time your Christianity felt dangerous or overwhelming or risky? When was the last time following God pinched your heart and made your palms sweat? This morning I'm going to be talking about a God that is dangerous and that is revolutionary. This God can't be tamed. This God doesn't live in our warm and comfortable blanket cocoons, although I do consider that one of his best blessings. This God calls us to his comfort and to life lived on the edge. Now, before we continue, I want to steer us away from a few things that could be running through your mind. God is not about risk simply because it's risky. We'll talk more about that. The risk that God guarantees is one that is in accordance with his nature and desire to pursue the whole world and bring them back to him. The entire Bible is full of people going out and pursuing the great call that God has given them. As I thought through this message, it was difficult to pick a text. Who should we talk about? Moses, the murderer who was called to rescue God's people out of slavery. Jonah, the righteous prophet sent to the most unrighteous city in the world. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who followed God into the fiery furnace. Daniel, who trusted God in the lion's den. Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, who didn't lose courage and continued to do the right thing even as he was sentenced to slavery and into prison. The Bible is full of characters whose lives got turned upside down by the great mission of God. Most of all, we see this in the Christmas story from start to finish. From Mary, who we'll look at today, accepting the incredible call to be the mother of the Son of God, to this very Son of God who left his place on high to be a part of this messy, dirty, painful, and uncomfortable world, to Joseph, Mary's husband, who stuck with Mary through a crazy story to become a part of the incredible Christmas story. Our scripture lesson, as we heard, comes from Luke 1, but before we begin to talk about it, let's pray. Holy God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts here this morning be pleasing to you, and may the words spoken here be not mine, but yours. And we ask all of this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. What a scene we find in the scripture lesson this morning. Could you imagine this happening to you? Commentaries say that Jewish women reached appropriate age to be married between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half. For any of you that missed that, that's about the age of a 6th or 7th grader. And by being engaged, Mary had been legally given to Joseph, and the bride price was already half paid or completely paid to her father. Mary's future was determined. She had no say in the matter, but she would have known that this was her purpose. This was the way that life happened as a 12-year-old Jewish girl in the first century. Mary would have been completely aware that she was following the comfortable and sensible and responsible path for her life. She would have been planning her life, imagining holding up her end of being a good girl when God, specifically an angel of God, burst into her plans and turned her life upside down. I love how honest this account is. Mary is perplexed. She's scared, and rightly so. At that time, being an unwed mother could have gotten Mary killed. She lived in a culture that was not hospitable to these situations, and Mary is overwhelmed with the idea of following such a dangerous call. She risked losing Joseph, she risked losing her family, she risked losing everything that gave her identity. Any one of her family members or Joseph had the legal right to disown Mary for what could have been perceived as breaking her promise of engagement to Joseph. For the rest of her life, answering this call makes her different, makes her set apart, not even considering the part where she raises the Son of God. I think the scandal of this moment passes us by when we read this story each Advent. It's the scandal of this moment that begins to reveal the scandal and the upside-down nature of the gospel. For what sort of God employs a scared 12-year-old girl to bring hope into the world? What sort of God brings hope into the world through a baby? It is our God, this same God, that then, as a fully human man, takes to the cross to bear our sins and redeem all of us. So wait, back up. Why does God call us to risk then? Remember, I said we would come back and talk about this. When Gabriel came with his message to Mary, what was it for? It was to bring about the kingdom of the Most High that will last forever. Mary would have known the story, the root of Jesse who would come to wipe the tears from the world's eyes and set everything right. She would have known that the Messiah, the Anointed One, was one who would bring hope to the hopeless, peace to the restless, and joy to those who are brokenhearted. She would have known that the coming of this Son of God would mean grace and salvation for all. Believe it or not, this is why God calls us too. The King came as Mary's son to set everything right, and will one day come to set everything as it should be. This God that calls scared 12-year-olds to be a part of its Christmas story also calls you and I to be a part of finding the lost and loving those who the rest of the world would scorn. Just as he loves the lost, meaning all of us, he calls all of us to be a part of this incredible mission that has been going on since before the beginning of time. And friends, he calls all of us to be a part of this mission now. We aren't supposed to wait. We are to begin to participate in the building of his kingdom wherever we are. God sends us, whether to be doctors or pastors or teachers or stay-at-home parents or engineers or office managers or restaurant owners, to love all those that we meet and be faithful to his gospel to spread the good news that Christ has come to redeem us all. This is why we are to do dangerous things. So then, just as Mary was perplexed and afraid, she would have known that this call was important, and more importantly, that this call was one that would change the world. Of course she was afraid, but did that make her any less certain of her call by God, or make her any less certain of God's faithfulness? If she was human, which we know she was, she may have had her doubts, but how she responds in verse 38 is crucial. Here I am, servant of the Lord, let it be with me according to your word. Do we respond like that? Should we respond like that? Yes, emphatically yes. To respond as Mary does is to participate in the very will of God, to bring his people back to him. It might be scary and dangerous, but it is worth it. However, I can say that Mary's answer challenges me. I have found called uncomfortable things to be true in my life, especially as I examine and discern the call that God has put on my life to ordain ministry in the Methodist Church. Starting here as a 9th grader, I never could have imagined the crazy places that accepting the grace of Christ into my heart would have taken me. As I have journeyed throughout high school in this youth group, it became apparent to me that God was calling me to something that I didn't even say out loud for a long time, ordained ministry. And as I've discerned this call, it's been hard for me to wrap my head around. Me? Little old me? Lead a church? I, like Mary, have been perplexed and troubled, which is why it's pretty easy for me to imagine how hard it was for her to hear her call. I'm nervous about something that seems much easier than raising the Son of God. This call means giving up security, giving up the conventional picket fence life, and it definitely means giving up my desire to be vulnerable, not to be vulnerable. At each crossroads, it is a different question. Where do you go to college? How do you respond to those who would criticize you for your call? Here, now, I stand as a follower of my call, terrified of what it means to go to graduate school, what my wallet will look like, and what the next 5 years look like. It's all humbling and terrifying and uncomfortable, and I know each one of us faces questions like this daily. I'm by no means perfect at answering them. A lot of mornings I just want to put my head under the covers and forget it all. I'm just being honest, but if I'm being more honest, following the call of God is worth all of that. It's worth the risk to participate in the work of this God. It's worth it to follow a God that continually extends grace to all of us. It's worth it to be at the center of a loving God's will. It's worth it. We live and love and are in relationship with a God who calls us to dangerous things. He is also a God that is dangerous to our systems, who is dangerous to our comfort as we stay complacent about injustice in the world. The coming of Christ made people at the top nervous. Think about Herod and the Pharisees and the Roman rulers, because their injustice to those who were defenseless could no longer go unheard. Jesus came into this world in the most unconventional way to tell us that he is here to redeem all of us and to set all things right. He now asks us and begs us to hear the cries of those who are marginalized and who have been hurt. He asks us to continue to love those who are different than us and to continue to allow the grace of Christ to bring hope into the world. He asks us to participate in this crazy and wonderful mission with him. We see this most evidenced in Christmas. And I found this quote yesterday on my Time Hop. Time Hop, if you don't know what it is an app that you can attach all of your social media to, and then you look at it every day and it'll show you what you posted a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Sometimes the things that I posted are weird, but this was very interesting and a very appropriate quote for this morning, I thought. So it says, "The Christmas story is anything but the sentimental, harmless, once-a-year occasion for a Christmas spirit that lasts only for a few days before we return to the facts of the real world. Christmas is a story of a radical invasion of God into the kind of world we live in all year long. A world where there is political unrest and injustice, poverty, hatred, jealousy, and the fear and longing that things could be different. We follow a scandalous and radical God, friends, and this is part of his dangerous nature. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a Christian theologian in the time of World War II in Germany, who would later be killed for his participation in a plot to kill Hitler, said as he commented on Mary's Magnificat, which is a little bit further in Luke chapter 1. He said, "He loves the lost, the forgotten, the insignificant, the outcasts, the weak, and the broken. Where men says lost, he says found. Where men say condemned, he says redeemed. Where men say no, he says yes. Where men look with indifference or superiority, he looks with burning love, such as nowhere else is to be found. Where men say contemptible, God cries blessed." As we enter into this season of Advent, let us begin to examine how we follow Christ. Do we get nervous? Does being a disciple of Christ make us uncomfortable? Does being a follower of Christ mean us looking past what might be face value in a situation to see the humanity and spirit of God in others? It probably should, it really should, and if we're being honest, it doesn't always. Jesus came to challenge our systems, to challenge our ways of being, and to challenge us to think about more than ourselves. Sometimes following God means giving up on everything we thought we wanted for something more beautiful than we could ever imagine. Sometimes, like how I felt when I went skydiving, everything in us will scream no as we begin to embark on this scary journey. We see this evidence throughout all of the Old and New Testament. When one encounters God, they should not expect to leave the same. And when God came in Jesus to encounter the world, he invites and invited us all to be changed and to change the world by spreading his amazing and saving grace. So what does that practically look like for you and I? Maybe for you, it's reaching out to someone in your office who you've never really liked but you know is hurting. Maybe it's leading a Bible study in the new year or helping out with our children or youth programs. Maybe it's examining your budget in 2015 to see how you can be giving to agencies and to the church so that they can do more to help those who are in need. Maybe it's challenging your stereotypes. Whatever it is, it should feel uncomfortable. My favorite line in My Own Little World by Matthew West is about him giving a lot, but never giving until it hurts. Being a follower of Christ means being willing to sacrifice everything. So, let's be uncomfortable. Let's begin to let amazing grace change us. Let's begin to see others as the children of God that they are. And let's begin to allow the love of God change our hearts. But make no mistake, it's risky and it's dangerous. And that's the very nature of the God that we follow. But oh friends, it is so worth it. In the name of the Father, and the